Hello everyone on the internet, thanks for tuning in.
And what's an episode with me, Master Bushido, with my Toku Bros on the outside. It's Flayvaman!
Majiro!
Oh, yeah, alright. Yeah. So, out of probably however many the Flayvaman has actually done, that's probably the closest to okay it might be in regards
That's probably
to.
because you're
Anyway,
used to
so
it, because this is the
yes,
second
that. So,
recording.
anyway, so that is, as everyone might know, the henshin noise to what we're going to be talking today. It's Mahou Sentai Magiranger!
Yay.
Talk about enthusiasm. Anyway.
Right, well actually, I did really like this series.
I did.
It was alright.
And there is so much for us to actually quash in such limited time. So to start off with and to kickstart, let us start with build-ups.
Right, this one's quite a complicated one for me because
Then quash it.
It was during Bokenji year that
Once
I watched
upon a
this.
time.
No, shut up. Right, so it was Bokenji year, so Bokenji was going on. I finished watching Ranger, but then before those two, I was learning about Mystic Force, and this was like when I was first learning about Sentai. So Magiranger had just finished. I'd actually seen it in the light of Mystic Force, so I knew what they looked like, and I thought it looked quite flamboyant. It looked really original. It looked really out there. And then, obviously, as Bokuja was going on and celebrating 30 years, they were sort of like talking about the history of. So they were mentioning the fact that Magiranger brought back the capes and that. So I thought that was really interesting because that was the first Power Ranger series with capes, as far as I'm aware. And then, so coming up to Magiranger, I think I knew what they looked like. I knew very little about the story, so I think I knew about like Walzard. And yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it wasn't like a rumor-based sort of build-up for me, but I knew about it. You know, like I'm uncouth. I kind of learned what everyone else kind of already knew, seeing the fact that it ended. And you know, I went into it full throttle, and it was actually pretty good. How about you?
For me, I didn't really know anything about it, to say the least. I literally went in semi-blind, really. And oddly enough, this is probably my first actual Sentai I actually watched from start to finish, and on top I went in completely blind, and I will admit I was completely blown away by it in more aspects than one, and that I will get into details in regards to stories, characters, and everything else. But yeah, moving on.
Right. So, what did we think of the first few episodes?
This mocha shake's good.
Come on. Professionalism.
So first couple of episodes, it honestly, it took me by surprise, honestly. So the general concept is you've got a family, a mother, father, and 5 siblings, and
Well, do we know Walzard's the father at the beginning? Spoiler alert. Oops.
oh, you think? Anyway, no. But my point is, as a general premise of the family, you've got that, but then the father is missing, and then all of a sudden, we find out that the siblings did not know that. Not just that. Before the mother dies, she bestows upon them the henshin devices.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure she also passes it upon them. Anyway, my point is
no, because I'm pretty sure. But then they didn't find the magic room until after she died.
But then the thing is, as you mentioned, she just gets killed right in front of them.
This has a really dark beginning. I mean, again, coming off, for me personally, coming off the lightness that was Ranger, and you know, I mean, it was intense, but it wasn't dark as such.
I mean,
and
the last time
Bokuja was still a good mix at that point. Bearing in mind it was still going on in the very early episodes.
This is probably the.
But this just started off. It just
It
smacks you in the face.
started dark.
It's a real dark story.
It started. This is almost the equivalent of darkness as to the penultimate episode in the Ninja.
Oh, don't bring the ninja into this. Anyway. Even though they do family thing as well, but I remember we did that in the ninja review. But anyway. Again, coming back to this, it really does. Episode one just smacks you in the face. This is going to be a dark series.
Honestly.
It does lighten up in a lot of places, but it starts dark. It's dark.
But the thing is after episode 1, in episode 2, Makito, Magic Green, you feel for him that he has to now, carry the burden of being, carrying the family, if you will, keeping them all together before they all just crumble, or whatever you want to call it. And then
anyway, I think from that we will lead straight into talking about characters.
Yeah.
So, all right, you start.
I'll start with this. So starting with the eldest of the siblings, Magic Green, Makito, he is a fantastic character. You feel for him sometimes in regards to how much pressure, how much responsibility he has to carry after the passing of his mother. You then have
second eldest,
Hawker, who's this very, I don't know if you want to go, very outgoing, very
extroverted.
Very extroverted, that's the word I was looking for. And she does look up for her siblings, but not as much as the rest, really. Then you have Tsubasa, who's a very closed, not introverted, but very close to himself, very quiet of a character. But a little bit of a gun-ho kind of, just a little bit though. And then you have Urara, Magi Blue. She is, again, similar to Tsubasa, very quiet, very shy as well, she is. And then you have, and lastly you have Kai, who is Magi Red, the youngest of the 5 siblings as well. And he is the gun-ho, he's the very total opposites to Tsubasa, very outgoing, very gun-ho, very flamboyant, if you will. And the roles, and for the benefit of the doubt, the roles that the actors play as a family, the chemistry amongst all the siblings are fantastic. Siblings,
right.
Yeah. As a family-based Sentai, it's one of the best choreographed.
This is the only family Sentai. You've got quite a few siblings Sentai.
True, but this is the first. Yeah, sorry. True.
I mean, bear in mind Ninja's second.
Oh no! Isn't was it Time Ranger or
They weren't family at all.
Go-Go 5?
They weren't family either, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if they were siblings, but it wasn't a family. No. This is the first family Sentai.
Fine. But my point is I swear one of them was. Anyway, my point is.
No, there's quite a few sibling Sentai, like No, right. This is the first family Sentai. That's all you need to know.
Anyway, my point is the acting is fantastic. The chemistry between all the sibling worked is brilliant. Go for it. You go with this, and then I'll lead on to Shine.
Right, okay, well, yeah, I was going to start with the main 5 in some random order. Right, so Magi Red, this is the one we're introduced with, even though he's not the red leader as sort of is typical to Sentai. He's actually the youngest. He's, it's kind of a new spin for a rookie Red, because technically they're all rookies, but then it's a pecking order in terms of how old they are in sort of age-wise family. And he's the youngest, he's the schoolboy. I'm not even sure if Magi Blue's still at school or not, I can't quite remember, but we know from Ep 1 that Kai is schoolboy, we see him in the uniform. It's a very iconic first episode where he gets the balloon for some little girl or something. So it kind of, you kind of think, oh, this is going to be adorable, but it's just boom,
No, it
darkness.
is not.
I like his theory passion. I like how he's always, he sort of carries that red mantle in a very different way to Mighty Morphin. And even having watched many Sentai since, I can still appreciate Kai for being quite original.
See, this is the thing. Like, and I'm gonna jump in by saying normally you'd have a Red Ranger that would, and I'm gonna use this in a very light way, but peacocking, if you know what I mean by that.
That just sounds gay. Anyway, moving on. Magic Blue. I will say that, I didn't like Magic Blue. She kind of, I don't know, I guess she was that introverted, she was that quiet, she was, I don't know, there was just something going on. I think she had she was probably a good representation of the darkness because she had that emo thing going on. And then
Really?
sort of relationship she developed with Magishine, I just thought was beyond weird. And then Tsubasa, Magi Yellow, I will say, he didn't stand out for me, but I did like.
I think that was deliberate, though. That he
right. So I'd say that I like the whole boxing element he had. They used that as one of his powers in the show. So it's like it's one of those. It's not uncommon, but it's not that common. So it's uncommon, but not that rare. That you've got the character and the character's sort of a persona. Yeah, and then they incorporate the Ranger's power based on the character. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming writing-wise they did it the other way around. So it's like, oh, Yellow Ranger's going to have a boxing glove. Let's make the Yellow Ranger a boxer as a character. So, I liked his, and again, it just sort of added a lot of pizzazz to Magiranger with him being like that. In terms of Magi Pink, she was very kawaii. She was very fan service. I really liked her.
I think Night and Mare were fan service. Honestly, I'm gonna disagree.
Well, there was them. We're gonna come.
No, we'll get to that. But my point is I think
Magi Green. I'll probably say I kind of felt. He did do the whole old elder brother thing. I know they like doing that in manga and anime, where you've got like the eldest brother looking after all the siblings. I kind of feel that, they've kind of done this here. Like, I can think of quite a few anime, bearing in mind I don't do manga. I can think of quite a few anime where you got the eldest brother looking after like millions of running around kids, but at least it wasn't quite like that, especially where you had like Magi Pink and Magi Yellow, who are somewhat older, like oldish. But I could see, you could kind of see what they were doing with Magi Green. I'll lead straight on to Magi Shine. I'll be honest, I thought he looked slick, but
as in a good way.
Well, there's only one way. I mean, saying slick is quite a compliment.
Oh, slick! I thought you said sick.
No, slick. And like as his teacher role, it was kind of meh, alright. But again, the relationship with Magi Blue was just really bizarre, and I don't know what possessed the rights to put that in. I mean, I think it's and again, I don't know. There's a lot of comparisons with anime you can do with this, and again, this was only my second series, so that whole younger girl, older guy thing, it's very common in anime. I'm just like, why are they doing this here? And it just didn't make any sense. I mean, you never see anything like that in Power Rangers at all.
Right. I'm going to mention about that wedding part when we get to story, because it is a very unique concept plus
it was
scene.
Messed up. It was messed up.
Anyway, my first interpretation and impression for Magishine or Hikaru is I liked him. I think he made a very good teacher, and I think he was like when his first appearance against the Jester-like monster he was badass. I'm not going to deny that. I loved his very stoic personality with almost next to sense of humor. Like, it's almost like a teacher trying to be funny, kind of.
So I didn't find him funny.
Pardon?
I didn't find him funny.
Well, no. That's what the point though. He was more stoic, if you will. And other than that, I think he I think he did a fairly good role in regards to trying to be a mentor for the Magirangers as well.
Right, so let's. I mean, we can cover the Magi White. Um,
The mother is again an amazing actress. I love the way she portrayed.
I barely remembered anything
No,
about it.
no, but my point is that the time that she's on screen, she does a fantastic role as being a motherly role, even trying to protect her kids as well. You feel, you feel for the kids that, oh shit, they lost their mother, kind of thing. It's just
Yeah, but when she does, spoiler alert, she comes back. It's kind of like meh.
true.
And then we'll cover Walzard and the villains, but and then you had the two support characters. You had
Right.
a plant.
No. Right. This is what I'll start with. This one. The plant is called Mandra Boy.
Yeah.
Who is effectively the alert system.
Very kawaii.
It is. It's a sproutling that talks, and it's also the alert system for the Magiranger when there's a monster as well. Now, on the flip side of characters, you have a genie in a lamp in the form of a cat named Smokey. Smokey the cat is.
He was very aggressive in a very comedic sense.
Yes. Smokey is the jester of the group. He is hilarious. I loved Smokey for all the scenes that he is in. I would always laugh at one
I
point.
love his sort of banter, his sort of rivalry banter with Mandra Boy. That was
not just that, but also his banter with his master Magishine as well. It's always that as well. I love it.
Sure, I think that's it for the hero side. And then you've got...
Technically, you've also got one other supporting hero cast as well, which she made a late entrance. Rin. And I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about... I'm talking about Rin, as in... Spell L-I-N, Lin. It's...
Luna Gel!
Luna Gel, yep.
Yeah, my laptop, I call my laptop Luna Gel, just so everyone knows.
Anyway, yes, so Magishine also had a friend when they were... I'll get to the story later, but anyway, there is Luna Gel as well, who's also a supporting recurring cast.
Yeah, because Luna Gel and Magishine were opposites with it, like Sun and Moon.
Sun and Moon, yeah, but they were... But in a way, they were also friends, and they were also good guys, if you will. Anywho, now
she's all right. She wasn't.
Do you want to do you want to start with the villains?
Right. Oh, okay. We'll go straight.
Or do you want me to do this one?
So we have like a million villains.
Just before that, the Great Heavenly Saint.
Oh, what you're talking about? The Machiko. Her name, the actress that plays Rita or Bandora.
Yeah.
And she's a veteran Sentai actress. Obviously, for the Mighty Morphin generation, she's much more well known as Rita Repulsa. She only appears in the movie and right at the end of the series, but she also makes a very brief appearance in Mystic Force. She was actually meant to reappear in Bokenger, but unfortunately she passed away, so she didn't. No, was it Bokenger or no? It was Gokaiger. She was meant to have a role in Gokaiger, but she had already passed away at this point. So I think there was a lot of tributes to her, and I think. Even because in Magiranger she does play a good character, so I kind of think it's nice that her last character was a goodie, a hero. Where I don't know what she was lined up to play in Gokaiger, to be fair, but I think that was a good sort of tribute sort of thing. But then a lot of the villains, like even the commanders, do pay a lot of homage to Bandora, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is where I'm gonna try and do my best on this because there are 3 waves of enemies, chapters, if you will, whichever. To start off with, you have this fat blue general commander thing with a couple of his commanders around him or whatever. Then you have Mamie, who takes quite a bit of...
The mummy guy. That's
the mummy, who has a huge deal
I love his sort of rivalry with Magishine. You see them... Yeah, because like with Magishine, I liked... even though I didn't like the character as much, but...
The backstory...
When he used to do his like battle scenes on the chessboard...
Yeah.
I thought that was quite...
Not just that, but the link chain as well between the two. I thought that was an added...
Well, yeah, that was the battle on the chessboard. Then chain each other together and battle. Like, that was just training. And then you see him doing that with Mamie. I thought that was really iconic.
Like, the backstory between those two was really interesting as well. And then, lastly... And this
you
is where...
a massive pyramid slam itself down onto the earth. It kind of raised up from Inversia.
And then you then get giant gods. About a dozen giant gods that just... This is where it lacked a little in the villains. They could have easily... These are giant... They come in as giants, but then they shrink themselves.
And then they go back to normal size.
Yeah, I'm like... Okay, I'm missing
basically, they had like a mixed bunch. I'll probably remember these guys a bit more. You had one guy that kind of threw the Rangers in a maze. You had one guy that did the typical Ranger swap episode. And then, I think they did a lot of cliche stuff towards the end. Like, right towards the end, you had the one commander who was actually not wanting to be a commander. He was wanting to be
turned good.
And you see like the whole cliche, him stroking a dog with Maggie Pink and that. It's just kind of like, all right, mate.
Well, here's the thing. With those
and then it's all led up to the reveal of the general, which at least in Magiranger, they kind of did it. It's a bit cliche now, but I think for the time it was all right. Where you just see like the eye. Throughout the series, then right at the end, he comes out of the eye and hello, I'm the general, and I'm gonna kick everyone's ass.
What you mean?
This is Enma, and it's some giant octopus thing, and he wields, like he just zaps everything, and then his main power was going through time.
Not just that, but also it is also absorbing magical energy as well.
Yes.
So effectively sucking life out of everything.
And
which I thought was
felt it was a bit cliche the way they defeated that.
No, but
I mean, because one thing we didn't touch on, and we've come apart from Walzard and Nightmare, we'll come to them right at the end, but. The one thing, the morale of Magiranger was courage. So, we talk about how it was such a dark series, but from the off, you see them like, all right, we're surrounded. So, they know it's a dark series, LOL, and they're like, all right, to combat darkness, to combat the tough times, you need courage. Yeah. And they really run with this theme so well, up to the end. And again. It was a bit cliche. Well, it's a bit cliche now, but they were like, "Oh, we're faced with this super duper roughy toughy villain. We need courage," and that's kind of part of how they defeat him. But I think look-wise, I think they were just like, "Oh, what's the ugliest thing we could do?" And they were just like an octopus on a man's body. Brilliant.
I mean. Honestly, I think
it was really bright red, and I think that kind of served. I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything pre-Magiranger, but Bokenger had its red villain.
It did.
Magiranger, Enma was just like this red, and then you got Magired, and even though you see through the series Magired's character development, it's amazing. So you do see at the end Magired facing off with Enma. It was really good scene, and we'll come to the finales at the end.
What's more,
But
I honestly think, I think the gods, the third wave of villains, were a bit of a hit and miss for me, to be honest. Some were good, some were bad, and even the leader of the gods was this aquatic, like almost a vibrant red with a carp as a head, with a trident as well. And I'm like, really? You're being led by a fish?
Brilliant. But moving on, I'll say like Nightmare. I liked them.
Yes. Nightmare is a vampire that calls herself Valkyria when they are merged, but then when she disassembles herself into two.
I thought, Valkyria was meh, and then like in Mystic Force, they only ever showed her from like the neck up or from a distance, just because she was quite a buxomy character. And then, unless you want to say more about Valkyria, then you've got the villain of the villains, Wolzard.
Well, hang on. Wait, just going back to Nightmare. Sorry, Valkyria / Nightmare.
Yeah, Kamen.
I was gonna say, with Nightmare, I love the fact how they are these immortal vampires, and they actually continue on from each wave. I loved it. I loved how they mingle themselves.
Because after the first wave, it was more of a background. Oh, I've got to survive, or I'll get my ass kicked, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I loved that. I loved it because Valkyrie knew, Nightmare knew that they were not strong enough to survive amongst it, but they just had to try to survive as well, especially against the gods as well. They were just hiding.
Like a little tiny fly.
They were. Yeah. I love that. It was hilarious as well, and also even the hilarity of Night and Mare, they were the fan service of the series, and what's more, they also had this bizarre, dark music theme thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they were singers, weren't they?
Yeah, We Are Nightmare thing, blah blah blah, whatever. Anyway.
Very nice. So Wolzard,
yes,
I will talk about this. Like I think from what I was learning of Mystic Force and just learning as I went along, I think Sentai is not as predictable as Power Rangers. But even here, it's like, oh, is he their father, sort of thing? And I loved how he was dark. He really established himself in F1 as sort of unicorn thing, and then the centaur thing, but then you see him battling with his inner conscious, and like you kind of see him chatting about honor and stuff. It's like, okay, this is definitely a good guy turned bad, trying to go good again. And so it's very.
I am your father.
You're an idiot, and I kind of think when they did reveal him as Wolzard Fire, they brought back some random veteran Sentai actor. I forget who it was. Anyway.
I heard about that. I just didn't recognise who it was.
I don't know, because again, I just I'm like, oh well, that don't mean nothing to me anyway, because I'd only just started watching. I'll probably look it up afterwards now. And I kind of thought, well, it was a bit lazy that they just painted him red when he turned.
Agreed.
They could have painted like orange or something, but anyway.
Really, orange?
I'd have liked orange, yeah. Well, no, because at the end of the day, we had yet to see a Purple Ranger, and he was already bluey purple when he was.
Wait, at the time of Magiranger? No, there wasn't a purple.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know, but again, the thing is, they used him as a purpley blue. It was more purple really when he was a villain as Wolzard.
Right. So what I will say about What I will say about Wolzard is I loved Warzard. I love that insomniac dark character of his. That
I don't know if he was an insomniac. I mean,
no,
he used to
the
go
fact
down to the base.
he didn't remember who.
You mean amnesiac?
Yeah, what did I say? Oh yeah, amnesia. Yeah, that. Sorry, not insomniac. And amnesiac of a character that
you're definitely not going to be my doctor anytime soon.
Anyway, but nonetheless, I loved his whole armor. That it's almost like
he had good armor. We'll get to the suits in a bit, but all right. So,
but in regard, just finishing off with Warzard, character-wise, I didn't mind his actual human father role. I think it was good. But when it got to just change it or adding a name to Warzard to make it Warzard Fire to become good, I was like, well, that's a bit lazy. As you mentioned.
It is. But I think it's such a packed series, and again, it was more. I think Magiranger was actually more about the villains when you think about it.
True. There's a lot going on.
Right. What can we actually remember what the henchmen look like?
No, you're really testing me.
Right, well, while you're thinking about that, because I don't remember them for the life of me, I'd say they barely did. This was barely a Monster of the Week format, simply because there are so many commanders in this series.
Especially when I'm going to jump in and when they do the third wave
but
with the gods,
it wasn't. Still.
No, see, with that, I'm going to jump in and say, rather than a Monster of the Week, with the third wave, with the gods, they literally went God of the Week.
No.
Which I thought that was interesting.
Oh well. Anyway,
and even some of the gods some of them had a two-parter story.
Alright, so let's talk about the suits. I think, again, I already mentioned when I first saw, the cape thing was quite swish. The helmets were very sort of flamboyant and pointy. I loved the sharp edges.
And it was unique. It was very character unique on the right.
Yeah, the rest of it was very uniform, so I liked sort of the chest piece. It was fairly well layered. I mean, the super forms,
don't even go there. Don't even go to
that. I mean, they kind of, I don't know. I guess did they really have to do that? But I kind of thought the one thing was a bit childish. And that's just covering it now rather than when we talk about weapons.
Right.
Magishine, he was very shiny as per his name. I actually did like the snow, the mothers. Sort of ranger outfit. Yeah. It kind of looked
Magi Mother.
I'm trying to think. Was she called Magi Mother? Because you had the Saint woman, who was Machiko, played by Machiko. They had Warzard and Warzard Fire again, just two different colours. But what I really liked was the fact that he had a shield.
Yes.
I thought
a sword and shield.
Pretty cool. A typical sword and shield look, but. Again, the shield's not, it's very extremely rare, if ever, in Sentai.
The last time, I think, in regards to, and I'm going to start in a reverse order, like what you're doing in the, with Warzard and Warzard Fire, the only other time I've ever seen a good knight-esque a suit of armor like that is Gosei Knight.
Yeah, but that came afterwards.
Yeah, I know. But that's it.
Brilliant.
But otherwise, in my case, in regards to my opinion on the outfits, to start off with the main five, I liked the whole simplicity of the outfits of them. Very uniformed, very color-coded, but with each to their individual deity of their elements, like fire gel, water gel, whatever the whole deity is, fire, water, earth, thunder, wind, and they'd have the symbol of it.
Well, you had green ground, pink storm, blue splash, yellow thunder, and then red the fire.
But then if you listen to the second verse, you'd hear the actual deity names as well.
Oh yeah, I actually know, yeah.
Anyway. My point is,
so,
but then when they go into the super forms, though, I feel that they really missed the mark, or it was very wasted. It was pointless having a very white style of a chest plate like
I
what
think,
like
yeah, there's
Dragon
very
Ranger
little
has.
they could have done, but it just wasn't necessary. I mean,
Agreed.
because like bearing in mind, I think let's see, because you didn't really have it in Hurricaneja. Abra Ranger had that sort of thing going on, but they had it going on very early on. Deca Ranger, they had a proper story. It looked proper
Yes.
swish.
Yes.
This didn't. It was not needed.
Actually,
but
they
yeah,
kind
there's
of had
very
a.
little they could have possibly
They
done.
kind of. The story premise to that was that they were using too much of it and they were going to fade.
Well, what you gonna do?
Anyway, the thing is I thought, in short, the super form was a bit hit and miss. It was wasted, and yes, the dial rods for it was
so
crap.
when they weren't in Henshin, they ironically, even though this was a family, they had a They had like a very uniform look, which again is a bit bizarre considering this wasn't like a sort of formal military setting. So like Deca Ranger had that, I mean, even Abba Ranger didn't need it and it had it, but, so when they don't need it and they have that uniform look, it's unnecessary, but I'll still say it looked good.
Agreed.
I'll still say it looked good, but it was just not necessary. I mean, again, Deca Ranger, necessary, Bokenger, necessary, Time Ranger, even Time Range didn't have it as much, and,
see, the one season that I think that could have used a uniform but didn't is Shinkenger.
But that's it, because they had their suit look, they had their civvy look, and then they had their like samurai, like when they went behind the curtain.
They had the gi.
They had their gi look, so that kind of made up for that. But again, Magiranger, they had a nice uniform, but it was just no need. And then Magishine was always walking around in a suit that looked like tension. Actually,
for me, Magishine in Ranger form, I loved Magishine's Ranger form. It was badass. I loved it.
Let's go on to talk about the mecha. I will say I thought it was quite unique that this was the first manifest mecha. Bearing in mind, like they manifested the mecha out of themselves, and they themselves became the mecha. I mean, they did something similar in Geki Ranger, which came 2 years later. But I just thought there was something quite unique about how Magic Ranger did this. Yeah, Geki Ranger had it as well, but it wasn't.
They didn't manifest.
No. They manifested that out of their power. Magic Ranger manifested it out of themselves.
The only other time I remember any Ranger manifesting from themselves is Ninja, but that's about it, really.
No, Ninja was...
No, the last
the Ninja ones were always knocking about as mecha. No, they were out of the shurikens. Anyway,
no, the last one.
That was still shurikens they made themselves. Oh, Jesus, man. Mickey Mouse. Anyway, so... Going back, so the mecha for Magiranger, they manifest the mecha out themselves. They themselves become the mecha, and that was kind of one thing. It's kind of cool. It was very sort of it was very sharp looking mecha they had, and then you had Wolzard, who he himself became a giant, and then sort of he gat-tied with a horse. He gat-tied with a horse.
He gat-tied with a horse
and
he
became a centaur, and he then sort of as well. Sometimes the horse would go up on its hind legs, and he'd put himself inside the horse, and he became like a super pointy man. And then I don't know. Was there? And then you had Magishine with his stupid train, which I just thought, okay, it's a bit OTT. And then when that became a Gatai mecha, it was just so clunky in my opinion.
What? No, it was a self mech.
Yeah, it was a train. It was a train that became a self mech. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it Gatai,
yeah. But what I found interesting was,
because it was 3 carriages, if I remember correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is what Go-Onja also had, but don't even talk about Go-Onja. I don't know if there were any other mecha.
except for the movie one, but that's it.
I don't even remember a movie mecha. I mean, I remember the movie.
No, what I'll do,
Okay.
and let me start with the main five first. So you have so the equivalents of a phoenix, a fairy, a Tauros slash bull, a mermaid, and what the hell was that? A phoenix. No.
Yeah, that was magic.
No, sorry, a Garuda, my bad.
Oh,
But, sorry, the phoenix was in the form of a human, to be more precise, so that was the red one. And what I found interesting was, again, they all had, they were all individual. All these mechs had their own characteristics. They were all different. They were all different sizes. There was no, how can I say, they were all unique in their own way, and I loved that. There was no, they were all vehicles, they were all cubes, they were all something. These were all different, and it was nice and fresh, to be honest. I loved that. Even with Wolzard's one, he comes in his horse and chariot, on the chariot as well, which I loved. And
not always. Sometimes he was just there fighting already, and then the horse would come.
Okay, well, majority of the time he comes in charging with the horse and chariot.
I wouldn't say the majority either.
Anyway, and then even the combined form, which was Magic King, it have a almost stereotypical wizard's hat as well, which I thought was a hilarity as well. And on tops, now in regards to what I was mentioning earlier, the movie special mech, which is a white version of Wolzard's Centaur, in that it was it was a unicorn.
How do you know this when you don't watch the films?
It was a unicorn.
Right.
And that Magired combines himself with his red mech and into that, so I thought that was really interesting as well. Otherwise, Magishine's train set, I thought, to be honest, it was this clunky piece of, well, ugh.
Bearing in mind, you did have like train mecha in, I think, Go-Go 5.
But that worked.
Yeah.
But with this, it was just a clunky piece of meh, to be honest, just a merc run. But otherwise, the only other, other than a mech, the only other hilarious giant form was Smokey at times when he would blow himself up in size and just help the Rangers out once in a blue moon. I thought was hilarious.
So moving on, what do we think of the weapons?
Unique is one word to sum
I
it.
vaguely remember the weapons.
Right.
I mean, I remember the Kamen henshin device as well.
Right.
They did the cell phone thing, which even by Mighty Morphins, even by Power Rangers standards, they'd done the cell phone a few times. I think they first did it in space. So I think even by this point, even Sentai fans were getting a bit sick of the henshin phone.
I don't think they did. No, because in space, Mega Ranger, they had the thingy.
Oh, I don't know. It looked like a calculator. Anyway, I don't know. Just again, even whether it's a phone thing, whether it's a dialing thing, whatever it was, I think even by this point, even for both standards, the cell phone was getting a bit, done by then.
The only time I can remember when a cell phone first used was Gal Ranger.
Right, okay, Gal Ranger, yeah, but that's it. There were a few others as well, and just generally dialing. I mean, I shouldn't have to dial a mecha, you know what I mean? And this doesn't make any sense either, because I think they were originally Magic ones. It's like, oh, alright, we'll modify it for you, like Ego cell phones. It's like, at least that kind of made sense. They justified them being cell phones, whereas like, you take Shinkenja, it wasn't justified. The shadow phones.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so I'll quickly sum this through, and you can intervene in each weapon if you want. But
Yeah.
So starting with the Magiphones, these are flip cell phones, so almost Japanese standard flip phones. But on top of that, what I found was really clever is it has an additional flip out part, which was the wand, which I thought was clever.
I think they kind of tried to imply that was a sort of antenna for the phone.
Touche. What's more, they can also put in a code number which would interpret the spell as well, which I thought was interesting. Now, in regards to the weapons, to start off with, they would have their the girls would have a magi wand, effectively, which is an upside down M with a staff on it, and then now the guys, they'd have said wand, but it would have a trick to it in that Red has his handle extended into a sword, or a blade shoots out of it, and then you have a sword. Tsubasa, Magic Yellow, has you flip the the wand over, and it turns into like a crossbow. And then Makito's one, it just turns into an axe. So I love the playability of that wand, the usage of it, which I thought was interesting. They also would use their own elemental powers and strengths and so on and so forth with it as well. So again, the versatility was there as well. Magi Shine would have his the lamp, the genie's lamp, which then the handle would fold back about 45 degrees, and the lamp head would fold out into a gun barrel, and you'd pretty much have like a revolver, effectively, called the Magi Lamp Buster.
Yeah, I like the Magi Lamp Buster.
It was cool, and Smokey added so much hilarity to that item.
He shot out of it, didn't he?
The finisher was Smokey Shining Attack, literally. Nice. Now with Hikaru, Magi Shine's henshin device, this is where I thought it was a bit interesting.
What did he have a henshin device?
That's the thing. It was a ticket clip thing.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It was a very old-fashioned style ticket stamp check thing. I don't know what you want to call it, but what's more, this is where it got really bizarre. He can use it as a cell phone.
Nice.
Yeah. But that is literally summing up. I mean, I'm not even going to go through the Dara rods because they were absolutely atrocious. But anyway.
Lols. Anyway, so let's go on to more of the aesthetic sides. What episode stood out for you in the whole of Magiranger?
Right. Ep 1, of course.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. Magi Shine's first appearance, I thought was interesting.
I don't remember so much his first appearance, but I remember his first teacher role, like teaching them on the chessboard and stuff.
See, I remember some of that, but I remember more him kicking ass in his first appearance. Otherwise, Mamie was a strong factor as well. But
was there a specific episode or episodes or art?
Alright,
so I'll give my list.
I don't know. The God's appearance was also memorable as well. And the last 2-3 episodes with Umma's chapter was really... Oh, and Magi Mother's resurrection as well, when they find it in the garden.
Right, well, okay, so my list, episode 1, definitely.
Yep.
Again, this is a really again, you know, normally people will rant on about episode 1, it's like opening episodes. But this episode 1, you know, it's been goodness knows how many years, like well over, nearly 10 years since I watched Magiranger.
Same.
I can still remember the first step quite well.
Like as though if it was, we just watched it yesterday.
But then, what? Yeah, well, not quite. Anyway, and then I don't quite remember Magi Shine's debut, but I remember him sort of when he first started teaching the Magiranger kids. I do kind of remember seeing Smokey very vividly. Episode wise, I remember the Ranger switching episode because you had red and pink switching. I do remember in the last arc, again, they were thrown into some sort of maze by the frog thing, I think.
Yep.
And then, I remember when they first came down, just a massive pyramid, boom.
Yeah.
And then, as well, just, one of the last commanders to be defeated was this furry one, this furry hat-looking one, who was like, oh, I don't want to be a bad guy. And he's like...
Sphinx!
No, it wasn't the Sphinx.
It was Sphinx. Sphinx was the one that turned.
I don't know the name, but it was just like, it looked like a mushroom. It looked like a fairy mushroom.
No.
He became friends with Magic Pink.
Oh, that thing.
Well, anyway.
No,
then, of course, the finale was quite, my goodness. A lot going on there.
In more ways, yeah. One other episode / story within its own story. The marriage. That was...
I was going to say that. Magi Shine and Magi Blue. I mean, I was just like, WTF. But
that kind of sums it.
But bearing in mind, not only was I watching these, but I was also like exploring the forums for the first time almost. And I just remember someone compared Magi Shine to Michael Jackson, and that's how I've seen it since. I'm just like, yeah, he is a bit. And yeah, I just thought that was insane and just, what the hell?
What did I think of the marriage? I thought, because if you actually, the story itself, that Magi Shine is gonna fight off to his death, that I think he wanted to marry Urara so that he fights for her to be able to go back to her, so to say, I think...
well, it was just messed up. Anyway, alright, so moving on, I'm going to talk about... I can't remember any specials. I know there must have been at least one. But anyway, so film-wise, they did their crossover with Ranger, which was actually quite unique. In that, you got Red's theory personality, then you've got Magi Red's sort of very sort of childish-like attitude. That merged together quite well, in my opinion.
And then you have Deca Green and Magic Green, just literally both looking like just watching upon the idiots.
Again, it was more, I think it relied heavily more on the Magiranger storyline. You had like Doggy Kruger sort of popping up, which was quite novel with Deca Swan. And it's kind of like I think it's quite unique in how they always bring the mentors together in these crossovers, and this was one of them. Storyline wise, it was very, like they did try to put a bit of Ranger in it, but I think it was more Magiranger villains.
I mean,
really,
the whole premise...
it did have Mamie in it, so it would be.
Yeah, I mean, the whole premise was about... was it not just about the courage for the Magiranger side, but it was very senpai.
I mean, again, it's a bit cliche now. They don't do it as often in the crossovers now. It's kind of like, the general from the last one's back. Oh no.
No. What I meant was, in this case, it was like Ranger were very experienced in the hero gigs, so they would know their shit.
That is what the crossover's always about anyway.
No, but I think in this one it was very full on in a good way, though, that they really expressed it.
They brought Ban back anyway. So, and then you had the main film. Well, I think I'm doing this in reverse. I don't know what order I'm doing this in. You then had the main film, which was Bride of Infertia. Now, they did this right at the end of the series, but for Bride of Infertia, it was our first real look into sort of the villain's underworld in Persia. There was some random girl, I think, if I remember correctly, she married Magi Red or someone, like, very predominant to the series. And again, it was a very sort of gothic. This was even more gothic than the series, which was pretty gothic in itself.
Would you say as gothic as Kamen Rider Kiba?
I'd probably say more.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, because at least with Kamen Rider Kiba, it was more just the look rather than the story, and they were doing it across time, etc. Whereas this was really gothic, and it was a dark storyline at the end of the day. So and then you did mention the movie Mecha. And then I think, Magiranger wise, predominantly Magiranger was when Bokenger did its versus Super Sentai, where you had Magishine sort of guiding the Bokengers. You really got to see inside the lamp, which was quite cool, or it was some random dimension. I'm not sure.
Dimension.
And then you did have Magiello. I mean, the funny thing about Magiello is he appears in this. And it was quite cool seeing him with like the previous 5 Sentai rather than just random Sentai.
Do you remember who it was? The list.
It was Boken Silver, Magi Yellow,
Magi Shine.
No, Magi Shine was with the Bokengers. They were all in some random dimension.
And then you had Magi Yellow, Boken Silver.
And then I'm trying to think. Who was from Deca Ranger? You had was it?
No.
But then you had Hurricane Blue.
Yeah.
And then you had Gao. I forget. But at the same time, that film was more about introducing Akared.
I'm just trying to remember that whole roster that they brought.
Anyway, but again, that was more Bokenger anyway. But it was quite cool because Magi Yellow, he appears here. And then he reappears in Ninja as, oh, I taught our Ninja. Alright, thanks for that, bye.
So, this is what I found interesting.
That annoying little girl with him and all. So
this is what I found interesting with Magi Yellow's actor, in that after Magiranger,
in Sentai, he's obviously Beatbuster, is it? Yeah.
He became Beatbuster in Go Busters,
and then he paid homage to that in the in the Go Kaija team up. They did.
He what?
They paid homage to the fact that he was the actor for both Magi Yellow and Beatbuster when they did the Go Kaija team up. So that's another Magiranger reference. I guess.
What's more, he then does a cameo as Tsubasa in Ninja as our ninja's master, which I thought was brilliant. I thought that was really clever.
But I don't know if it's... But that's kind of thing, though, because I think series-wise, like, the epilogue was he went back to boxing, so it kind of doesn't make sense.
No, but honestly...
Anyway, and at the same time, if he's teaching in English, is it established that he knows how to speak English? Anyway, and then just to briefly cover, in Go Kaija, Magirangers, Magi Red also made an appearance. They also had their Go Kaija exclusive mecha, which was just Magi Red's mecha.
Magi Dragon.
Yeah. So let's move on to a lot of the background stuff. What do we think of the music?
Oddly enough, on this occasion, I actually preferred the jingle to the ending over the opening, believe it or not.
That was very kawaii. I've used that word a lot in this review, but it was very kawaii.
Dark Sea.
I used to have it playing on my phone. Now I don't. I mean, the Magiranger OP was actually alright. It was a bit bog standard. It was a bit bland, but it wasn't rubbish.
I'd say bog standard, not boring, but I'd say it's very stereotypical. But
yeah. Anyway, and then the BGM really was elemental to the gothic feel.
There was a lot of elemental.
And that, as you mentioned earlier, and I totally forgot, Nyan Mare did their sort of singing thing.
Yeah. But I love the ending. I would always watch the ending jingle. I'd always love that. And it was very
Anyway,
Yeah.
so what do we think of the choreography of Magiranger? It was very CGI
It
heavy, wire
was a
work,
bit.
and it
See, no, no, not
wasn't
wire
very
work.
fighty because it wouldn't have to be.
I think the CGI actually worked in this,
Yeah,
with all the magical powers and so
but
on and
that's
so
it.
forth.
It kind
But
of again, it
I
wasn't
think
CGI in the same way that Go Onja was, but you know they were flying around.
not
They
as
were.
much.
It was more power heavy than
Yes,
previous.
but
I mean,
but
like Deca Ranger was more sort of artillery heavy, whereas this was like, oh, we can just manifest, boom, you know.
but I think the CGI power work, whatever, was used wisely, if you will. It was well done. The wireworks, I didn't notice the overabundance of it, as opposed to, say, well, Ghost, for
Well, no,
instance.
because they were flying around the cliffs.
No,
I
if
mean,
anything,
that neatly does bring me onto location because I love the locations in this.
just before that though, before you mention about the location, speaking of flying around, one item that we forgot to mention was the broomsticks that they transform into these flying hover bikes things.
Well, you know, you mainly saw them in the intro, and you saw them in the Ninja appearance,
Yeah.
but I didn't really spot them throughout. Really, you know, it was transportation, but yeah.
So, in
Anyway.
regards to locations, where do you remember?
Oh my goodness, everywhere. You know, this was very iconic to the series. You know, it gave it its feel. You know, whether you talk about, the house that the Magirangers were
I
in,
love the house.
you know, and it was very, and I'll come on to the Power Rangers comparison in a bit, but this is so much better. It didn't have to be as dark because the rest of the series was dark. You know, where, they mainly did their mecha battles in forests. I mean, the general I think for the rest of the Ranger scenes was very generic. Like, they'd fight outside the stadium and stuff. And then, like in Burshot, oh my goodness, it gave it so much depth. But again, and I've mentioned this a million times already, the most iconic set was the chessboard. It just kind of summed it up really well. Like you did get to see inside Magi Shine's mecha. That was a bit, I think they were really ripping on Harry Potter for this because at the end of the day, this whole series pays, they basically said, oh, we're going to do a magic theme because Harry Potter's really popular. And again, it is still really popular because because Harry Potter has his own theme park in Japan. So, they must have really run with this because of the popularity of the Harry Potter series, and that's well documented. And so, for their sets, they really come down to the detail on it.
I think for the backgrounds, I think there are some fights that's done by the beach, by the ocean, by cliff sides, in woodlands, like you mentioned in the mech fights. There are a lot of the mech fights were done in the forests as well. And otherwise, in Furcia as well, like you mentioned, it was really dark and eerie. You can tell that you feel like you're in the underworld, like in hell. And if it was like a PG-rated hell, and but
actually, this is very borderline.
But in regards to like, those were the memorable and like on tops you'd have your stereotypical outside your soccer stadium, whatever, baseball stadium, whatever. But all the other unique sets, the houses in the Ozu family house, including the magical room, was so well detailed. It was so memorable that if I closed my eyes, I could just almost remember every item in that room. In Furcia as well, the grit of the darkness of that base, the cavern of it, if you will,
Really?
was so dark, eerie, gritty.
I swear you're mixing this up with Mystic Force. Anyway,
no,
but yeah, okay.
But it was so gritty and so on and so forth. And I just love the whole unique set pieces that they have, really.
Okay, so would you recommend Magiranger to a friend?
You were gonna mention Mystic Force in regards to comparing.
No, I'll do that at the end. So would you recommend Magiranger to a friend?
Right. I honestly, for a first timer, yes, I would actually recommend this for a story alone.
See,
No,
I
hang on,
wouldn't.
Let me finish this one. The
Okay.
story alone, I found it fantastic from start to finish. I think you could almost ignore the fight sequences and just watch this as a story, as a family, almost a family drama-ish. I loved it. I loved the whole story concept of it. I think it's a good first timer, second timer, big fans. I'd say go
Right.
for it.
I reckon, I'm not saying it's a bad series. I just wouldn't recommend it as a first time just because it's really different. Because I kind of think that, because if you use this as a sort of first
benchmark.
One, yeah, you kind of like, oh, but, it's really different. Because this is ironic, because for you, this was your first Sentai, but for me, this was my second, and I was just kind of like, I was just kind of blown away by the contrast. And, being a sort of veteran, PR fan, I was kind of like, wow, this is definitely different. So,
Agreed.
As a second series for me, it blew me away. But so that is why I wouldn't recommend, maybe it's a third series. Just simply because it's so different.
No, I think set the benchmark with this, and then what's it?
No, because again, I kind of think, if you like things that, if you're going to watch all different Sentai, then fine. But when you come across the Sentais that are very similar, this is just kind of it's different.
So you think this is a standalone on its own?
Yeah,
That's why I think
can't really compare it. So I will say, alright, so I'm going to conclude. So I'm going to conclude by doing my PR comparison.
Oh no!
Now, the thing about
ruin the ending. Why don't you?
No, shut up! I always do this towards the end. Anyway, so the ironic thing about Magiranger is when I finished watching it, I did the review for the YouTube playlists that I had at the time. And I actually said, alright, I've finished watching Magiranger. I don't think I'm going to remember that much about it in so many years' time because I don't find it that memorable. I will actually say that I was very wrong in that actually the fact that it is very different, I remember a lot more than I thought I would. Because when I finished watching it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to remember this. This is just going to be forgotten simply because it will only be remembered for being a Harry Potter homage. But actually it stands out very well as a series on its own. Now, Mystic Force, having taken the stock footage from Magiranger, couldn't have been very different.
I'm going to jump in by saying, with Magiranger, I did not, even when you mentioned now about the Harry Potter homage and everything, I did not see Harry Potter. I was literally,
I did. I'll be honest, because again, it was sort of, Harry Potter's very popular in Japan. No, because again, I heard a lot of that at the same time.
See, that's the thing. When I watched like the first half episode of Mystic Force, and I saw way too much Harry Potter in there.
Because Magi shines Mecha, I just saw Hogwarts Express. It's as it is. But coming back to Mystic Force now it's very different because, for one, Mystic Force was the first series that didn't have an Afro-Caribbean actor, so they were all Caucasian. I'm not sure if it was the first, but it most likely was one of the first series to have siblings in it. So even though Magiranger was a family, Mystic Force only had the Pink and Blue as sisters, and then you had Nick, who was the Red Ranger. He was, he still ended up being, the child of Magi Mother and Wolzard. I think his name was Korag in the series. And, it was very bland. It was very sort of, I really don't like the fact that during this sort of era of PR, it's where they made that transition from America to New Zealand, but they were still pretending that they were in America, and they kind of still do that. But they kind of embrace, at least in more recent years, they embrace the whole New Zealand thing a little more. But so this was again. It was one of those series that they were pretending to be in America, but there was very like even their accents. They didn't even bother masking them here. And then you had like their base setting was in a shop because the main four worked for a DJ shop, and so you had the shop owner who just didn't know they were Power Rangers as you do. And then sort of Nick comes along. He was like this lone biker dude, and then he just happened upon the other four, and then all right, I'll work in your shop. And then, but unlike Magiranger, where the mother dies, you had their mentor, who was like some ginger woman, who lived in the forest, which is the alternative dimension where they fight the evil monsters to save the Earth, and no one on Earth knows about their battles because they battle in a different dimension, which is in the woods somewhere. And so, so they took out a lot of the dark elements. And again, Bancuria, you only see a neck couple from a distance. You don't see Nine there. Like they play down the, the Walzard thing. Like you do still see those iconic scenes where he's.
Do you see Mamie?
Very briefly. I mean, you only see the motherly saint in the very end. The one thing that's really cheap about Mystic Force, and I'll be honest, I haven't watched every episode of Mystic Force, so I might have missed like lots of stuff. But the thing about Mystic Force, as far as I could see, is they didn't care so much for the morale of the story like Magiranger did. But in their final episode, you just get Magi Red popping, piping up. Oh, I think we need courage, guys. Come on. And they kind of just do that in the final episode, as opposed to Magiranger, where courage was a strong theme throughout.
They were consistent.
Yes, absolutely. And they weren't in Mystic Force. It was just some sort of key word to use in the final episode. And they basically, I think they just didn't do the time traveling thing. Otherwise, it was very similar finale. Just it felt corny and ripped off. And that's our Magiranger review wrapped up.
Can you do that again with a less feminine style?
That's our Magiranger.
Okay, anyway. So that has been that, and as always, I've been Master Bushido. Oh wait, just before that, as always, do like, comment, subscribe, comment on how feminine he has been acting in this episode. But otherwise, as always, I've been Master Bushido. He's been my Toku Bro, or sister in this case, on the other side of that being Flayvaman! And as always, we'll catch you next time, and as always, it's Physicam!
To the cam, see you next time.